Levack Goz here with you on 104.5 The Team, and joining us on the phone lines now, he writes for ESPN.com. He covers the New York Giants. Our pal Jordan Raanan joins us, and let's get right into it. We hear your voice on a clip that's now going, dare we say, viral, asking Ben McAdoo what he told the New York Giants at halftime. Was that true, that whole reaction? That wasn't edited, right, that he just didn't give you a response?
Yeah, that was just an awkward situation. You know, this is sort of a technique McAdoo uses when he's not willing to answer questions. He just sort of sits there and bites his tongue or, furls his lip or something and just waits till someone asks another question. And he decided to do it on that question. I don't know. He kind of said, we asked him a follow-up yesterday. He kind of said, like, he wasn't sure where it was heading. Like, he thought, it kind of sounded like he thought, like, we were trying to, probe on something, and he was trying to figure it out, and then at that point he just decided he wasn't going to answer the question, and it created a very awkward-looking, it's not a soundbite, I guess, but highlight, or end soundbite, because he did do an So, yeah, it was just very strange. He knows it's obviously not a great moment. It looks bad for him. It makes it look like he couldn't remember, but honestly, I don't think that was the case in this one. But it's a terrible optics for Ben McAdoo, and it just adds to the perception right now that people think he doesn't know what he's doing and that he's in over his head. So
yeah, highlight, low light, whatever.
It was a pretty basic question.
Right.
That's not like a crazy question or anything. I was just, hey, would you tell the team at halftime?
So you got the answer to why he didn't answer the question, but did we ever find out the answer to what he told his team at halftime?
He said it's better. Some things are better left unsaid.
Okay.
So I think he was kind of contemplating of how to go about it. He probably reamed them out, like went ballistic at halftime, and just decided it was better to not say that and not sort of disclose that part of what happened in the locker room at halftime, because it probably wasn't pretty because they were getting their butts kicked.
They got absolutely destroyed by the LA Rams. Jordan Raanan joining us now,
right.
and it's after a bye week, too. Why was it so bad? Why did Big Blue get beaten up by this Rams team?
Yeah, that's really the confounding part, because I actually thought the Giants were going to come out and play well, and obviously I was way off base on that one. Coming out of the bye week, I thought they'd have a little pride, especially that defense, and boy, did that defense. Then all of a sudden during the week, Janoris Jenkins gets suspended, right? And then Jonathan Casillas doesn't make it back. He's the defensive captain. Olivier Vernon doesn't make it back from injury. Kerry Wynn doesn't make it to the game. So now, they're short on linebackers. B.J. Goodson's not playing. And the secondary is obviously a mess. The defensive back room, I don't know what's going on in there. They look like they just didn't know what the play call was. A total confusion at times, and just a really awful performance, and really got to question. I know Ben McAdoo's going to sit there and say the players didn't quit, but you look at the field and you look at the product, and everything else tells you otherwise, because there's no NFL team that is 34 points better than you on your home field, right? I mean,
right.
We could all agree on that. I mean,
yes.
These are all professional players. There's no team that should be 34 points better than you on your home field. So it was just an embarrassment. It was just an absolute debacle, and now you're like, where does this team go from here? There's 8 games left in this season.
8 games left in the season. I just want to go back to that point about the defense there. Who is that on? Is that on Spagnuolo? Is that on McAdoo? Is that on everybody?
Yeah, I think that's got to be on everybody. I mean, it's definitely an indictment on Ben McAdoo. He's the head coach of this team. He's got to get these guys to play, make sure everything's all settled, and obviously something is not right on that defensive side. And then you look at the Steve Spagnuolo, the defense in particular. I mean, he's got to take a hit. This defense has been bad this year. I thought they would be able to turn it around in the second half here a little bit. But then they come out and lay an absolute egg, and the secondary is just a mess. It's just an absolute mess. The defensive backs room, it just seems like something is incredibly wrong there. You now have had 2 guys suspended. They're not on the same page. When I did a story last week on Eli Apple, he said they're playing more zone. There was more confusion and miscommunication early in the year. And you know what? That falls on the defensive coordinator, who's basically the defensive head coach there. That's his job. So that falls on Steve Spagnuolo, and as Ben McAdoo always says, it all falls on his shoulders as well. So, yeah, Just a terrible situation, an awful performance. They had 51 points at home, the most since 1964, before they even played in the Meadowlands.
Jordan Raanan joining us now, ESPN.com. He covers the New York Giants. Let's go back to that defensive back room, too. You touched on it there. Jack Rabbit being suspended, DRC not being a part of it. What is that locker room like right now? Is there just some big friction between the coaching staff and those type of players across the team?
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. They say everything's fine. They say there's no dysfunction, but then you look at the product and you're like, what the heck? And Janoris Jenkins, he just didn't show up to practice. I mean, could you imagine that? Let's say the Giants played on Sunday. I didn't show up to my job, right? And then you just stroll in on Monday or Tuesday morning as if nothing ever happened and just be like, And the reason this stuff is going on, and this is why everybody makes such a big deal about all this stuff beforehand, with the Odell Beckham, of like how things. And look, this isn't his fault, Odell. I mean, but when the Giants didn't nip in the bud earlier, like Janoris Jenkins, there's been another occasion where he, the whole team had to come and he left early. I think it was, I believe, for the bye last year, and he probably just got a fine for it and figured, hey, I'm just going to come back this time. I'll come back late and I'll take the fine for it. And what happens is that it's just an utter disrespect for the coach and for the program that they're running over there. And Ben McAdoo's trying to get it under wraps, and doing it at this point so far has done nothing but have everything sort of unravel. Now, there's 8 games here left, so let's see what happens. I remember several years back, and this is sort of one of my biggest regrets on the beat, is the Giants lost a disastrous game in Jacksonville, right? Mm-hmm. They're winning the whole game. This is under Tom Coughlin. They're winning the whole game. They're actually up huge at halftime. They completely blow it, complete debacle. Their season is a disaster. I forget exactly what their record was at the time. They had about 3 wins or so. It looked like they were going to be like 4-12 at best. And I quickly, as they blew the lead, I quickly turned and wrote my story to, Coughlin's got to go. This is, it's time. This team's going to be 4-12 at best. They need to scrap it and rebuild. And next thing you know, they come back and they win, like, I think it was 3 of their last 4 games or 4 of the last 5 games, something like that. And you're like, oh, well, they still played for him, and then he ended up staying one more year. And granted, it was probably a mistake for the Giants. They probably needed to scrap it at that point. Now they're still kind of paying for not rebuilding it for real at any point along the way here. And so that now they're kind of in that situation again. It kind of reminds me of that. Ben McAdoo, total disaster, complete debacle, and now they're sitting here still with 8 games left. So let's see what they can kind of do here. It's hard for me to envision, though, any sort of this team really putting it together from what we've seen so far, and especially what you saw this past Sunday.
And is that because of the talent that's left out there with these guys being inactive and injuries, or is it more so about the coaching staff? Because if Ben McAdoo can still have some guys come in there and win games, he should get credit where credit's due. But I'm with you on this, Jordan. I don't see that happening anytime soon.
Yeah, they've got a tough schedule, too. I mean, you think about it. They only play one team with a losing record right now, and you know who that is? That's on the road in Oakland. This is after San Francisco, obviously. This San Francisco game is a complete, this is a total 1-16, these two teams. They're a total disaster. I don't know, it's going to be hard to watch this game. Fortunately, I get paid to do it, and I will be there. Otherwise, I definitely would not be tuning into Giants 49ers 0-10 and 0-9 and 1-7. So yeah, it's just hard to envision any sort of this team all of a sudden. Oh, we're going to show pride now. And I thought they were going to do it before, but they are going to get some defensive guys back at some point. Jonathan Casillas and Olivier Vernon; those are 2 big guys that can help. B.J. Goodson, hopefully. But right now, what a mess, and the players seem to have thrown in the towel. So how are they going to get them to play, or is it even worth it? It might be time to go look at the future now. What does Davis Webb have? I mean, we're getting to that point, right?
Right. Let's talk about that Davis Webb. We had callers yesterday calling in and telling us it's time to get a look at Davis Webb. Eli Manning, what's his future? Can he be traded in the offseason? When does that start to become a serious discussion with this Giants franchise?
Well, Eli Manning has a no-trade clause, right? Mm-hmm. We all know that. Mm-hmm. He doesn't really want to go anywhere else. I don't see them trading him. I really don't see that happening. He's not going to be like, all right, go trade me. I'm good. He has a family. He built a house here in New Jersey. He has a wife and 3 kids. He's a New Jersey guy now. I just don't see him being a guy. What does he have to go chase, right? He's got 2 Super Bowls. He already won. He already got those in his pocket, right? He had a good career. He's 37 years old. He's going to be 37 years old. I just don't see that now. The Davis Webb thing is interesting. Now, look, they're not just going to throw Davis Webb in there with 8 games left in the season and say, go ahead. Eli still has this streak. He'll tie his brother this week, 207 or 208, whatever the number is exactly, consecutive starts. Pass him the following week. And then after that, the streak doesn't matter, right? So once they get that out of the way, I think that'll sort of clear the stage for Davis Webb at some point to get in here. Now, if things continue to go poorly, this is where I think, all right, this is Ben McAdoo's final card, right? Like if this season is just a total disaster, he was the one who pushed for Davis Webb. He was the big proponent for Davis Webb. I mean, he pushed for him in several rounds of the draft, right? Mm-hmm. So if things continue to go poorly, say, oh, this is my last card, I got to get this guy in. Say, if he, show them this is my guy, this is the guy we need to go forward with. And if he shows something and, plays really well, or, it's hard for me to even envision what he would have to do. I mean, would he have to beat Deshaun Watson, basically, to come in to save Ben McAdoo at that point? But I just feel like that is an option. And at some point this year, it seems that we're headed towards the fact that Davis Webb will likely get into some games, and at least they could see what he could do. Because the problem with Davis Webb is they had 4 quarterbacks here in the preseason, right, and the training camp. They had Josh Johnson and Geno Smith competing for the backup role. And Davis Webb did not take many reps throughout training camp, in team drills. He did not get a ton of good quality preseason reps. I mean, he was in at the end of games with the 3rd stringers, the 4th stringers, guys who, some of them, a good portion of them actually aren't even in the league, right?
Right.
So he didn't get a ton of. They had to create a special period called opportunity period, basically to make sure that they can get him reps in practices and stuff like that. So he didn't. He's not even a guy that is sitting there as the backup. He's been inactive for 8 games, hasn't received a ton of practice reps, and the preseason was a little limited. So it's just like it's hard to imagine he's going to come in and be close to be ready to be a significant contributor or even show that at this point of his career and his progression. So
right, and it's something I said yesterday on the show that like Davis Webb has not become a better quarterback because the Giants are losing. If Eli Manning was like his older brother Peyton was struggling and there was controversy there, then I'd understand, but that hasn't happened.
The thing is Eli playing well? He's not playing well. He's not doing anything great. I mean, he was missing throws left and right the other day. He's an average guy. And I think the reality is here they have to be like, sure, does he give them a better chance to win games than Davis Webb? Of course he does at this point in his career, right? Mm-hmm. It's hard to argue that. But they're looking at this as for the future. And Eli Manning is going to be 37 years old. He's about to miss the playoffs for the, 5th time in 6 years. So where are they going with Eli Manning? I think everyone's this is the final realization. Look, they're not going anywhere with Eli Manning. Now, it's not all his fault, right? The line isn't good around him. They haven't had much of a running game. But at the same time, he hasn't exactly wowed anybody. He hasn't blown anybody away. He's making $20 million a year, basically, or in that range, or counting that against the salary cap. And is he really does he lift the team? Is he taking this team and making other guys around him much better? So I think you come to the realization, look, we're getting towards the end here with him. We just have to see what we have with the other guys because we're going to have to move forward soon. I mean, that's just the reality of the situation. So I think they'll have to justify it like that. Everybody knows that. I mean, who doesn't know that at this point?
He covers the New York Giants for ESPN.com. Our pal Jordan Raanan. Jordan, appreciate the time, and we'll be talking again soon.
You got it, guys. Anytime.